What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the Breneman Show, College Football Talk Edition. I'm your host, Adam Breneman, former All-American tight end, Power 5 football coach, current college football analyst, call games for ESPN, content creator, everything you can think of in the college football space. And we got a great episode for you today.
The number one, tight end in the country.
Adam Breneman, tight end, Cedar Cliff.
And then popped up.
Touchdown! Adam Breneman, a 14-yard strike.
We're going to recap this past weekend of college football. It was nuts. It was electric. We're going to preview Week 11. We're going to talk college football playoff. It's actually 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. So playoff rankings are going to come out in the middle of this podcast. It's going to be fun to talk about. It's going to talk about players, teams of the week, Heisman watch, Jayden Daniels, all that stuff. We're going to be joined by a special guest, Trey Anderson, former quarterback coach at Arizona State, Division I quarterback, great football mind to dive into all this college football talk. He coached Jayden Daniels, LSU quarterback, personally at Arizona State. So we're going to talk all about different kinds of stuff in college football. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors for today's podcast. My main one, my number one daily fantasy app, Underdog Fantasy, always supporting me. Underdog Fantasy is the best and the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports and pick 'em. There's nothing like it. Easiest app, best people. It's legal in most states. I love Underdog. I use it all the time to pick the higher or lower props for players. You get better odds in a sports book on all that stuff. So I've been hitting a bunch of picks on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to check them out. Use my code Breneman to get your first time deposit doubled up to $100. So you can do risk-free plays up to $100. I'm always posting plays on my TikTok and stuff like that about Underdog Fantasy and what picks to do. So shout out Underdog Fantasy for their support. And then my other sponsor. If you're a sports bettor and you don't have the Pickett app, I don't know what you're doing. Download Pickett. I'm telling you, Pickett is the best app to track your bets, to sync your sports books, to see the lines, and it's a sports betting social media. I post all my picks on there, and it literally gives you information you can't get anywhere else. I use it all the time to see, I saw this past weekend, the Titans-Chiefs game. I saw that the public was so heavy on Kansas City through the Pickett app. I took the Titans, paid me out a lot of money. And that was all because I wanted to bet against the public. Use the Pickett app to see it. It's a great app. And use my code ADAM when you download it, and you will get $3 or $100 free deposited into your account. Just use my code, and it's free money. The app's free, so you might as well do it just to get the free money. Support Pickett because they support me, Pikkit. Download the Pickett app and use my code ADAM. All right, it was a wild week of college football. Let's get in to recapping some of the best games. We got to start in the top place, the biggest game of the year. At that moment, it felt like Georgia against Tennessee. Georgia wins 27-13. To be honest, I didn't see that coming. I picked Georgia to cover the spread in this game, obviously got it wrong. And I think I might have overreacted a little bit to the storyline of like wanting someone to beat Georgia really, really bad and wanting Tennessee to be great. So I lost that bet, but it was a game that was not even as close as the 27-13 score indicates. I mean, it was completely one-sided. It was led by Stetson Bennett's game management and really by that Georgia defense and their pass rush. I mean, how elite is Georgia's defense? And they continue to replenish those players year after year. And you got to give a shout out to Stetson Bennett. I mean, he is playing at such a high level. The best thing he does, he doesn't turn the ball over. Okay, he's good at what he does. They don't ask him to do too much. He takes care of the football, and he's an elite game manager. That Georgia defense held the top offense in the country, the Tennessee offense. Again, when I bet them, I was thinking, well, the top offense in the country, they can't get killed. They can't get blown out. That Georgia defense held the Tennessee offense, which was averaging 500-plus yards a game and 45-plus points a game, to just 289 yards total in the game. If you would have told me Tennessee's offense was going to have 289 yards in that game, I would have called you crazy the day before it. Their passing offense, Tennessee's, was averaging 335 yards a game. Georgia held them to 195, 13 points. And the most important stat, if you're going to win big games, you've got to win on third down. Georgia's third down percentage on offense, Tennessee's third down percentage on offense, 2 for 14. Georgia's defense won the money down time after time on Saturday and absolutely dominated this game. I mean, 6 sacks, 8 TFLs, and 2 turnovers for the Georgia defense. And the most impressive part is how Georgia's defense continues to replenish year after year. Almost every starter from last year gets drafted into the NFL, playing on Sundays. You think, well, Georgia's not going to be very good. The way they've recruited time and time again at defense, even after losing Dan Lanning, their defensive coordinator, is remarkable. They get more and more good players every single year. Guys we didn't even hear of become superstars the next year. That Georgia defense just is like it's like those Catholic high schools when you're playing high school football. It just replenish talent time after time. Like, where do these guys come from? They're recruiting guys all over the place. That's what Georgia's defense is like. Elite replenishment, top-end recruitment. I mean, Kirby Smart does such a good job. Jalen Carter, top 5 lock on that Georgia defense. He may be the best player they have. And then in that game, I can't not mention Sanford Stadium. What an atmosphere. What a day for college football on the biggest stage. That is such an advantage for Georgia. You can't beat a Saturday in the South for college football. I saw some unconfirmed reports that they broke the loudest stadium record, so I'm not sure if that's true or not, but Sanford Stadium was absolutely rocking. And I think looking forward for Georgia, who can even give Georgia a game right now? Okay, if Tennessee can't give them a game, I don't know who can. Bama? Absolutely not. Bama doesn't have the playmakers they had in recent years. That Georgia defense will shut them down. Tennessee obviously proved they can't play with them Saturday. LSU, I mean, LSU's they got those freshmen on the offensive line. They will struggle against that Georgia pass rush. I think LSU is probably the best shot left in the SEC to beat Georgia, but I don't like the chances, man. I mean, Tennessee maybe at a neutral site or like a playoff rematch if Tennessee, Georgia, we see them in the playoff, but I mean, Georgia is well on their way to repeating as champions. Nobody is going to get in their way. I don't see how it happens. And then on the other side, what's next for Tennessee? Josh Heupel, year 2. You're at the top of the world. Everyone's talking about you. How do you respond now? You just got your absolute what kicked in on national television on the big stage. How do you respond? They got to regroup, and they should finish now with 3 wins against Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. They're not going to make the SEC championship, but this should not hold them out of the playoffs. They are still very much alive in playoff contention. I believe Tennessee will make the playoff. They're going to be one of the top 4 teams in the country. I think they got a chance of still hanging in there. I had them in my top 4 after Week 10. I put it on Twitter on Saturday night. I still have Tennessee in my top 4. But Josh Heupel, I mean, let's talk about the job he's done in just 2 years at Tennessee. They're only a couple classes away from being at the top tier of college football. They're already there, but to be like the high-end Georgia, Alabama, like that tier consistently, this is only year 2 for Josh Heupel. What an amazing job he has done. All right. Let's go to LSU versus Alabama. LSU wins 32-31. Maybe the game of the year. In college football. An absolute instant classic. It was the rivalry under the lights in Death Valley. It certainly lived up to the hype. I mean, that game was so fun to watch. 2 blue bloods in college football going at it. A true battle of college football giants. It felt like a slugfest. Every play, every possession mattered. It was so amazing to watch. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit did such a great job on the call. You felt like you were there watching it on TV. You guys could tell I had the weekend off, so didn't call a game this weekend. So it was fun to kind of watch the games unfold on Saturday. As I predicted, Saban did have a plan for keeping Jayden Daniels in the pocket, but it did not hold up when it mattered. Jayden Daniels led 3 second-half touchdown drives and then 4 scoring drives overall in the second half. Jayden Daniels, an amazing story. You guys have heard me talk about him a bunch. We're going to talk to his former quarterback coach, Trey Anderson, about him here shortly. He outduels his childhood friend, Bryce Young. A lot of talk. We talked about it on last week's show about the Jayden Daniels versus Bryce Young matchup. Did anyone think this was possible after watching Jayden Daniels last year and where they were at the end of last season? I mean, everyone had written off Jayden Daniels. And everyone was loving Bryce Young. What a great story for Jayden Daniels. What a great story. He outplayed Bryce Young on Saturday night. And then Alabama. What's wrong with Alabama? The same thing I've mentioned time after time, if you guys follow me. They don't have any weapons. Jahmyr Gibbs is their only weapon at wide receiver. They don't have that first-round pick at wideout that they've always had, that game record. They have defensive inconsistencies, and they have penalties time after time in big games, and it's so uncharacteristic of Alabama to have those penalties. I mean, they're so uncharacteristic for a Nick Saban team to have those kinds of penalties. Brian Kelly and his young Tigers Did anyone see Brian Kelly having this kind of success early in his time at LSU? I mean, I certainly didn't. Everyone said this guy couldn't recruit. Everyone said it. They said this guy couldn't recruit, and he's had the number 4 class in the country. He had the number 4 class in the country right now, ahead of Ohio State, ahead of Texas, ahead of Oklahoma, ahead of Miami, ahead of Florida, ahead of Clemson, ahead of Oregon, ahead of Tennessee. I mean, this is the guy that everyone was making fun of, Brian Kelly. And they were making fun of him for his dancing, for his fake accent, whatever you want to call it. But Brian Kelly has shown up, went to work, and has won over that community. That play call to go for 2 on Saturday night, won over not only just his team, he won over his quarterback and Jayden Daniels. He won over those recruits. He won over the entire town of Baton Rouge when he went for 2 to win that game on Saturday night. What a call by Brian Kelly. An absolute ballsy call to win the game right there against Alabama. Let's talk about Harold Perkins. Get to know the guy's name. He's the next great linebacker, defensive player at LSU. He's going to wear the story number 7 at LSU next season, I bet. Harold Perkins will play a long time in the NFL. The guy is special. And then for LSU, I mean, those freshman tackles they have, Emory Jones and Will Campbell, both were big-time recruits. We recruited Will Campbell at Arizona State. When you start those kind of freshman tackles, having a guy like Jayden Daniels is so key. That can evade pressure, that can make big plays with his legs. But those 2 freshmen have done a really good job. It's not easy to start as a true freshman in the SEC. I mean, everyone knows that. But those 2 guys, Emory Jones and Will Campbell, have been great. Mason Taylor, what a story. The tight end, under-recruited. I just shot a video for my TikTok about him yesterday. Under-recruited, was a 3-star. I remember watching his film when he was in high school, thinking he was pretty good, but didn't have a lot of offers. He had a huge fourth-quarter touchdown and then the game-winning 2-point conversion. Guy's a true freshman. I mean, just playing at such a high level. He's savvy. He's not the most athletic guy, but he's just so good and talented, always where he's supposed to be. Mason Taylor is going to be a fun guy to watch as his career progresses in college football. Jayden Daniels is a Heisman candidate. I've been saying it now for a couple weeks. If you pay attention to what I say, I've been saying Jayden Daniels is a Heisman candidate for a few weeks now. A couple weeks ago, it was plus 5,000 odds for Jayden Daniels to win the Heisman. Now it's plus 1,700 on some sports books. He may just backdoor this Heisman trophy. Don't count him out. Don't count him out. Jayden Daniels may backdoor the Heisman trophy. For LSU looking forward, you got to win out to make the playoff. You got to win out, and you still have a chance. You can lose one and still make the SEC championship game, but you're out of the playoff. But still, whether they lose one, whether they win out, winning out doesn't guarantee them a playoff spot, but it gives them a chance, a pretty good chance in my opinion. Even if they lose one of these coming up, they got a chance at the SEC championship game. Really, really an amazing season for Brian Kelly. After losing week 1 to Florida State, what an amazing job he's done. Alabama. Is the Alabama dynasty over? Is it over? I mean, when's the last time we weren't talking about Alabama being in the playoff discussion? We're after week 10. They're out. They're just out. I mean, playoffs are extremely unlikely for the first time in what feels like forever for Alabama. I don't know what it is, but this Nick Saban team doesn't look like a Nick Saban team. Is the Alabama dynasty over? Chugging along here for a recap from last Saturday. Let's go to Notre Dame versus Clemson in a game that was supposed to be a good one, but didn't quite live up to it. Notre Dame wins 35-14. What seemed like the inevitable for Clemson finally happened. It finally happened. We knew it was going to happen at some point. David Pollack said this on game day. He said it really well. Clemson isn't great on offense. They're not great on defense, but they've been finding ways to win. But that's not sustainable. You know, the coaches, Dabo and coaches always say, good teams find ways to win. Good teams dominate. They've been finding a way to win, but it's not sustainable, and it showed up on Saturday night, and they just got ran up and down the field, got out-physicaled by Notre Dame. Notre Dame philosophy, run the football. Make you guys stop us. Make your poor QB play beat us, and it worked. It worked. Their plan was marvelous. Marcus Freeman executed it to the highest level. They controlled the line. DJ Uiagalelei couldn't make plays down the field, whether it was his ability or the play calling, I don't know, but they couldn't make plays. The defense was absolutely dominant for Notre Dame. 0 points through 3 quarters. Ben Morrison, the freshman corner, you're going to hear his name a lot in college football. He'll be playing in the NFL someday. Also, freshman Jaden Mickey balled out for Notre Dame. We got some good young players on that Notre Dame defense all around their team. For Marcus Freeman, did he turn the corner? Did he turn the corner here in this game? He's won 6 of the last 7 outside of the bad loss to Stanford. 3 ranked wins over that time period. 6-3 now with Navy, Boston College, and USC left. He's got a chance to go 3-0 in these last few games and end the season with a 9-3 record, which is a pretty good first year at Notre Dame. And to think about what everyone was saying about them when they started off the season so poorly. I mean, Marcus Freeman's got this thing turned around now. They're playing good Notre Dame hard-nosed football. And then Clemson. Like, who are they? Who is Clemson? Who's Dabo without Taj Boyd, without Trevor Lawrence, without Deshaun Watson? A lot of people have been critical of his hiring process and hiring from within constantly. You know, at some point, does he have to go outside of the Clemson tree? Does he have to go outside? You know, and then Dabo, I think, will turn this thing around and get it going in the right direction. But they got to win these types of games. You know, when you're in an ACC conference who it's not a strong conference, you got to win games like against Notre Dame. You just have to win them if you want to be at the top tier of college football. That loss on Saturday certainly put a stain on the Clemson season, and that's a game that people are going to be talking about just because they got out physical up and down the field. But I think Dabo will figure it out. I think they'll have an ability to come back. They're still going to play for the ACC championship, and I think hopefully that game for Clemson was the rude awakening they needed. You got to come to play every single week, and they got to figure this thing out on offense. They got to figure out what's going on at quarterback. They got to figure out a way to move the ball down the field. Does Clemson have a path to the playoff? I don't think so. I don't think they have a path to the playoff. But what win on their schedule would impress you? Well, I mean, the ACC is not good at all. I don't see how Clemson gets in the playoff with that loss to Notre Dame because they don't have that statement win. This was the opportunity to get it, and they didn't get it done. They didn't get it done. I don't think Clemson's got a path to the playoffs. Let's go to Kansas State against Texas. Texas wins 34-27. Texas. I mean, watching Texas play football, it's like stressful, man. I mean, Texas fans have PTSD. This was almost a replay of the Texas-Oklahoma State game. For the second game in a row now, Texas attempts to blow a double-digit lead. They were up 31-10 at half. They score 3 points in the second half and then get outscored 17-13. What is Texas's issue with scoring with closing games? What are they saying at halftime? Texas just keeps letting these games get close in the second half. They had major second half offensive issues in the last 2 games. I mean, unlike the Oklahoma State game where they gave Bijan Robinson the ball, he had in the first half, and then he had less than 5 touches in the second half. They gave him 16. And then they gave Johnson, their other running back, multiple carries as well. And they still couldn't get the job done on offense in the second half. Now, what's left for Texas? There's a lot left. It starts with TCU this weekend. Game day is going to be there. Major Big 12 championship implications for the title game. And TCU's playoff hopes are on the line. It's a huge game, probably the game of the week in college football this coming week. I like Texas to win this game. I don't think TCU is very good. I mean, they're good, but I don't think they're a top 4 team in the country. TCU's been playing not to lose in recent weeks. Max Duggan didn't look great until late against Texas Tech. I do think their defense is susceptible to giving up some big plays. So I don't like TCU. I think Texas wins that game. We'll talk about it more here in a little bit. And then the Big 12 cannibalism continues. They just keep beating up on each other. Kansas State loss this weekend, drops them to 4-2 in the conference. And they're now tied for second place with Texas and Baylor. 5 teams are within 1 game of second place for the conference championship bid. And Kansas is bowl eligible for the first time since Mark Mangino what a job Lance Leipold has done. And talking about Kansas brings me to my Kansas little pendant here. My chain from GLD. My friends at GLD have the best college pennant chains. They gave me this one to represent Kansas in the amazing season they've had. Check out my friends at GLD. ShopGLD.com. Best chains. It's all made of all gold, all diamond. They got the most swag. They got NFL ones, college teams, whatever you guys can think of. I rock them all the time. You're not a real college football fan if you don't have your team's GLD chain. I mean, just look how fire this Kansas chain is. All right, we're joined now by Trey Anderson. I called you in the intro. I was talking about you. I said one of the best offensive minds I've been around in college football. And I've been around a lot of people, and that wasn't even a joke. You're like laughing now, but like you know ball as well as anybody. Former quarterbacks coach at Arizona State, Division I quarterback at FIU and Pitt, and quarterback trainer, quarterback guru, whatever you want to call yourself. Or not, you wouldn't call yourself that, but that's what I'm calling you.
You're too kind.
and one of my closest friends. So everybody.
Hey. Appreciate you having me, man. I don't know if I agree with any of those QB gurus, smartest X's and O's, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
Honestly, this is probably like you've taught me everything I know about football pretty much. I mean, remember the days I was asking you like what inside zone was? But I mean, maybe not that basic, but
I'll never forget remember the first scout card you drew up at ASU and we took a picture and it was widely documented.
Yeah. You said that this is not it. This is not how we do it, right? This is not
Came a long way.
Yeah, we come a long way, man. Yes, we have. All right, well, we got a lot to talk about. One of the wildest weekends in college football in Week 10, going into Week 11. Literally, it's 7:42 Eastern time right now, and the playoff rankings just came out. So we got a lot to dive into. Let's start with might have been like the greatest game of the year in college football, Alabama LSU. And I want to pick your brain on Jayden Daniels for a bunch of reasons. Number one, because you coached him at Arizona State. You saw kind of like the peak of his career when, or of his time at Arizona State as a true freshman. You saw kind of him struggle with his accuracy, with his decision making in his third year, and just kind of want to dive into that. I know you watched the LSU game. What did you see? You know, I kind of talked about it in the intro with how he just straight up outplayed Bryce Young in that game, and they've done such a good job of molding that offense around him, but would love to hear kind of how you dissected that game.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, man, because it was a flashback to his freshman year. I mean, it's the Jayden we all knew. I mean, I remember when he got on campus, you know, the spring going into his true freshman year, it took 2 days for us to be like, oh, yeah, that's our guy. You know, I mean, because you could just tell right away. I mean, he's just so physically gifted. And, you know, obviously everyone knows about his athleticism, but just his quick release, his decision-making, everything was just so sharp. And so it's fun to see him get back to that level. You know, and you got to credit offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock, you know, and you could tell the offense that rolled out against Florida State week 1 to now is a completely different deal, you know, and so that's a credit to their staff for being able to take a step back and realize, okay, this is the guy we have. This is the players we have. You know, let's not be hard-headed and trying to force him into a bunch of, you know, early dropbacks. That's not his specialty, right? And we saw in the Florida State game, he's scrambling, and everyone was saying, oh, here goes Jayden again. But, you know, a credit to him and the staff there, you know, you see utilizing his athleticism with the zone read game, moving the pocket, you know, early downs, they're going, you know, max protection, just let him, you know, throw a one-on-one. And, you know, again, that's what he did his freshman year. The guy was a freshman All-American for a reason. You know, I mean, the dude is ultra talented. So, yeah, it was fun to see him back at that level of play, man. And I think we're going to see it continue on throughout the season.
Yeah, you know, it seems like in that offense now, and I haven't watched every LSU game all the way through, but I've seen enough to know that it seems like in that offense, there's really there's no middle game in the pass game. There's no like 5-step drop stuff. It's all either taking shots off play action, like you said, and giving their guys a one-on-one chance where he doesn't have to like go through the progression down the field, or it's like quick game, or it's him sprinting out RPO, you know, doing what he does best. But there's no like they completely almost took it out of the playbook. Is that what you saw? Like there's no like reading a dig concept like from left to right and like going through 5 progressions.
Yeah, and by the way, like there's not a lot of college quarterbacks that can truly drop back and get through progression. So like that's what I was telling someone the other day. Like it's not exactly unique to Jayden. You know, I mean, because you think about all the variables that are involved in a passing game. You got to have good protection. You got to have receivers that you trust and are getting to their spots, and the timing. Like, there's so many variables to have a successful drop back pass game. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think overtime was a great example of that's kind of who they are, right? First play of overtime, they run the zone read and arc the tight end to block for him, and he does what he does, right? Touchdown. And then 2-point conversion, they move the pocket, get him on the edge, and the rest is history. So I think they've done a great job of really molding that offense to fit his strengths. And at the end of the day, that's what coaching is, right? Identify strengths and weaknesses, play to the strengths, and protect their deficiencies. And I think they're doing that well.
What a job Brian Kelly's done, man. And it's funny to think about after that Florida State game, like, and all the hate he was getting on social media and all the hate he got all offseason about his fake accent, and like everyone's saying he'll never win at LSU, and I mean, just like, he's done such an incredible job, and now like they're recruiting at such a high level. I mean, their class is above like Ohio State's, and tons of, I think, like number 3, number 4 class in the country. Just such a good job, and obviously has put the pieces around Jayden. Their quarterback coach, not Denbrock's the OC, but their quarterback coach, I forget his name, has done a good job with Jayden, obviously, and it's been cool to see. It feels like Jayden almost like needed the structure that probably like Brian Kelly brings in his program. Like Brian Kelly like ain't taking any BS from anybody, and I'm sure like that the system and what he had at Arizona State is like so different than probably what Brian Kelly has, that it probably was good for Jayden. And clearly, like, you almost see like his demeanor and his body language and his and the way, like, his leadership, the way he carries himself on the field even seems to be improved. Like, and you can tell that just by watching TV.
Yeah, no doubt. And you see it. I mean, you see that across the country. I mean, I think about DTR at UCLA, like his demeanor on the field and his confidence.
Got better, yeah.
It comes with age and maturity, and you're right. I mean, I think the move to LSU was nothing but good for him, and getting in that, even just the SEC and that environment, and it's just a completely different atmosphere than what he's used to. And yeah, I think it's only helped him, and he's going to continue to grow. And like you see it across the country again. Bo Nix, another great example of just those mature guys that have seen a lot of football. Man, it pays dividends.
Yeah, Bo's another one, man. Like, people like talked about. I mean, I remember tweeting about him like early in the summer, and like, dude, the Auburn fans were like, he sucks, like he's so bad. I put him in like my players to watch this season. Dude, like, they were like, that guy's terrible. And it's funny, like, another great story. I love like transfer portal stories of guys like betting on themselves. And Jayden, for that reason, like, is a unique one in the sense that like a lot of guys at quarterback like either like stay the same level or like go down a notch. Some would argue that like Bo Nix went from SEC to the Pac-12, but like Jayden went from like the Pac-12 to the SEC, like truly bet on himself. Like, if I don't win this job, my football career is probably over. You know what I mean? Totally. So like, I give him respect for like betting on himself and going to a place that they had quarterbacks that had played before. The guy that retired, I forget, is the guy that
Brennan, I think Miles Brennan.
Yeah, Miles Brennan. Yeah. But yeah, such a cool story. So many cool stories of that. And yeah, Bo Nix is another great one, and he's playing really well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example. We've had a ton of talks about this in the past, but the recruiting and scheme and kind of how they come together. Like, disclaimer, you have to have good players, right? No one's going to say you can win with a bunch of tomato cans. Like, you got to have good players. But I think, Bo, especially Jayden, those are examples of how impactful scheme can be, especially for a quarterback. Of you try to force a guy into doing a certain thing, man. Bo was running the Boise State, the Brian Harsin kind of pro style. That just wasn't his deal, right? You say the same thing about Jayden. And so I think it's important for fans to realize that too, before you bash a kid for transferring, right? Like, there's important factors, man. And like you said with Jayden, he bet on himself and knows I've played at an extremely high level. I know I can get back to that point, and so he needed a fresh start and a scheme that is fit around him, and you're seeing it play out. So I think that's an interesting thing to see kind of play out, over the year, of why guys move and why you see these changes take place.
Well, let's jump in quick to college football playoff rankings. They came out as we've been sitting here. So I'll rattle off the top Top 10 real quick. We'll put them on the screen for everyone. Georgia at number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 3. I was curious to see how the committee would view Ohio State and Michigan there at 2 and 3 after Ohio State didn't look very good against Northwestern. TCU number 4. We'll talk about them. Tennessee at number 5, Oregon number 6, LSU 7, USC 8, Bama 9, and Clemson 10. Initial reactions. What surprises you in that in the top 10 right there, or is that about what you expected?
It's about what I expected. I love seeing TCU, a team like TCU, get the respect they deserve, and they're just finding ways to win.
TCU's going to lose it. They're going to lose to Texas this week.
I wouldn't shock me. It's interesting. Obviously Clemson fell a lot, because of last week. You look at their schedule, and you can see them winning out and finding their way back into the playoffs. Man, I mean, I think they have Louisville at home. They've got Miami at home, and then they've got a South Carolina team that's not great. And then they win the ACC. They're 12-1. They're an ACC champ. So that's kind of the team I'm looking at that I think people are going to forget about. And I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. You see them creep back into the playoff discussion.
I'm with you. I talked about it right before you got on. I ended with talking about the Notre Dame Clemson game, and I'm with you. I just like a 12-1 Clemson team that got absolutely railroaded. I'm sorry, 11-1 Clemson team that got or 12-1 if they win the ACC championship. They got absolutely railroaded by Notre Dame. That in like a really weak conference. I just been playing these scenarios in my head. Like, okay, if you get a 2-loss LSU team, or you get, it's like what. Who do they take? Like who does Clemson get in over at 12-1, and like with their one loss being to really bad, like that game wasn't even close, just got ran out of the gym, and they don't have a signature win. What I mean? Like, they don't have one win where you're like, oh, like, that was an impressive win. Because then it's true. It's going to be a fun next 3 weeks to try to figure this thing out, and like who gets in. Like Tennessee, like I think Tennessee obviously stays alive. I think they're one of the 4 best teams right now, even after the Georgia game. Like to me, like that game was more indicative of like Georgia and just how darn good Georgia is. Like Georgia's going to win the national title. Like it's obvious. I think everyone probably agrees on that for the most part. But like, I mean, I think it was a little. Was that hot?
Huh?
Was that a hot take?
Yeah, sarcasm.
Well, but like, I think tennis. That was like everyone. I think even that line was a little bit of an overreaction of like everyone wanting Tennessee to beat Georgia, like kind of wanted them to come down. I picked Tennessee in that game to cover the spread. Wasn't even close. I get other things. I don't think TCU is that good. I think they're going to lose to Texas. I don't think like Clemson, like back to them. And I'm just looking at kind of the things I jotted down about Clemson right now. Like I don't think they're better than any one lost team in the top 10. And I don't think they're better than LSU. So, I don't see how, if they win out, it's going to be interesting to see how the committee views that in a really bad ACC.
Right. No, it's true. But you got to think LSU, they'll probably, if they do finish 10-3.
Yeah. Well, then they're out. Yeah.
I mean, so yeah. And, the team I love is Oregon. I mean, like you talk about how good Georgia is, right? And Oregon gets just crushed week 1, and we just write them off as, oh, they're awful. But then you see now how good that Georgia team is. And now obviously, the Pac-12 is not as great, but Oregon's handling business. They look really good. Bo Nix looks good. They've got a ton of weapons. So I'm interested to see how they finish out. They've got Utah at home, and then they play at Oregon State, that's never an easy game. And then they've got to win the Pac-12 championship. But so it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
And then the other ones are that we didn't really hit on, like Alabama. Like I don't see how they have a chance. I think they're out of it. And like, is the Bama dynasty over? Like, is it done? Like, when's the last time we were sitting at like week 10, it just ended, and like Bama wasn't in the playoff conversation anymore? Like, when was the last time that happened?
I know. No, it feels weird. I mean, I remember even watching the Texas game, like, and honestly,
like the penalties, man. Like this doesn't look like Nick Saban's coach.
No, and so that's where, like, after that game, and even though they pulled it out, I remember thinking like this team looks a little different. They're just looking. I don't know if it's the senior leadership. I don't know. We're not behind the walls to know exactly. We do know how much goes on behind the scenes, and so, but it just looks different. It does, and you can't put it on the quarterback because the quarterback's playing his butt off. But you can talk about Bill O'Brien, and kind of that scheme. Does that fit the college? Nick Saban's talked a ton about how Sarkisian was his favorite coordinator, Lane Kiffin, that kind of style. I don't know. I do know it doesn't seem right, but I think it's good for college football. I think there's a lot of people that are excited to see that and see somebody else take the reins.
The other two that I was interested to see how it played out, Ohio State and Michigan, and just to kind of see like how the committee views those two. Like Ohio State looked bad against Northwestern, and then comes out and wins it in the second half. Michigan didn't look great against Rutgers, then goes 38-0 in the second half and dominates the rest of that game. And like I don't really know like how good those two teams really are. Ohio State like should have, could have, would have lost to Penn State, but Penn State turned it over 4 times, but it looked like I was at that game. Looked like Penn State was going to win. The security guards were lined up around the stadium, around the field, like with their freaking like the freaking SWAT team was out there making sure they don't storm the field. So like it's like how good is Ohio State? They haven't looked that great. They haven't like against Northwestern. They did not look good against Northwestern. Their offense didn't look good. Again, bad weather. They've had injuries. They survived. Good teams find a way to win, but at some point they got to dominate some of these games, and they did early in the season. But as of late, they haven't looked that great. And can they run the football? That's kind of what they struggled with. It's going to be fun to see them play Michigan.
Yeah, and I think their defense has played really well, and so I think sometimes it's good to kind of have a sloppy win, where you got to lean on your defense.
Good point.
You don't want them just to have a shootout every game, and so. Sometimes that can be good, man. With the offense, they've got too many playmakers to just stall out for the next couple of weeks. I think they'll get it figured out. I think their defense has proven that they can hold their own. So I'm a believer. I'm not giving up on them just yet.
Yeah. And then USC too. I mean, USC, that offense is so fun to watch, and I guess for them it's the UCLA game and then potentially Oregon, in the Pac-12 championship to look forward to, and they've had so many injuries. They got to get healthy, and their defense did not look very good against Cal. I mean that's what everyone talks about all year about like USC's defense. They got ran out of the gym against Cal, but. Finding ways to win games, and Lincoln Riley's doing what we thought he would and put up a lot of points. But excited to see kind of how that Pac-12 plays out. Because again, I mean, dude, for all the, and I'll admit it, for all the shit I give the Pac-12 and talk about how they're terrible, Pac-12's got 3 teams that have a chance right now that are in it, that are like, and Utah like isn't far out of the mix either.
I was just about to say it's somehow Utah every year, man. We write them up early and they find a way. They're gonna somehow they'll
Utah like number 5 coming into
like they'll go and beat Oregon on the road, or you know what I mean. Like they'll do something at the end, and then they'll find their way into the championship, and and you just never know. But I think that's a credit to the head coach and just the culture he's built there. That is a conference that it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I'm excited to see, DTR and Caleb Williams go at it. I think that's good for college football too. The 2 LA teams, both 8-1, squaring off, man, that's going to be a good one down the road.
All right, let's get into players of the week. But before we get there, this episode is presented by my friends at Members First Federal Credit Union. Members First is the best credit union for personal finance, business finance, mortgages, and everything in between. Guys, I use Members First as my financial institution for my personal banking, business banking, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, how great their products are, and more importantly, how great their customer service is. I also have multiple mortgages with Members First. They have the best rates. Process was so easy. They walked me through the whole thing. Trust me, guys, Members First Federal Credit Union is the place to go for all your banking needs. Go to membersfirst.org. Check them out for yourself. I appreciate their support of this podcast, of all my content, and would appreciate all my listeners to show members. All right, players of the week. I'm going to start with an Arizona guy, Trey. An Arizona guy from Notre Dame, Ben Morrison, the freshman defensive back, 7 tackles and 2 picks. Returned one of them 97 yards for a touchdown in the upset. Notre Dame, man, they got some good young corners. Ben Morris, our defensive staff recruited him when we were at Arizona State, and we heard that name a lot. I mean, that guy's showed up early. He's going to be playing on Sundays, and it was fun to kind of watch him. You could almost see throughout the game like his confidence, like getting higher and higher, and he played lights out, man. He shut down those Clemson receivers.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I mean, especially as a freshman, man, to be able to do that. But I'll stay in Arizona. I got Bijan Robinson.
Oh, love it.
Texas, man.
Give him the ball, man. Give him the ball.
That's it. Like, feed your beast, man. 30 carries, 209 yards. Like, just, he's a 3-down back, dude. I mean, he can run routes. He has great hands. He's physical, pass protection. I mean, you name it. The dude is a stud. And I think, you're starting to see Sarkisian really lean on him. And they've got a good young quarterback in Quinn Ewers, but the offense runs through Bijan. And so, I mean, especially in that kind of game against Kansas State, man, they had to have it. And he showed out.
You just mentioned good young quarterback, and we're getting so off topic here, but this is what's gonna happen when you and I talk. Can you assess the Cade Klubnik interception in the Notre Dame Clemson game? He got in there at the one drive, and on his second play of the game through the pick, he was like rolling out to his, I believe he was rolling out to his right and threw across his body on an over route. Did you see that play?
Yeah, if anyone needs a good laugh, you can look up the 2012 stat line Pitt versus Utah. I think I threw 3 picks that year as that game as a true freshman. So Cade, I get what you're going through, brother. Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough, especially going as a young guy off the bench, man, and he's trying to make something happen. To their credit, they tried to get him outside of the pocket. And I think he was rolling left, and they tried to flip his hips and hit the over. And he had a guy in his face, so he's probably thinking he doesn't want to take a sack. But that's something that a lot of young quarterbacks have to learn through the maturity process, is just when to eat it, when to either you just got to take the sack or throw it away, but you can't turn the ball over. Right. And that was, and he's a young kid, man. He'll continue to grow and learn. That's a tough environment to go into as a true freshman. Not easy. Up. I think they were on the minus 15 or 20, whatever it was. So, that was a tough one. Yeah.
All right. Back to our players of the week. Got sidetracked there. I'm saying at the running back position, a guy that I had on our Next Up by Mercury podcast recently, Devin Neal, running back at Kansas. Because, I can't ever stop talking about Kansas football, man. I'm all in on Kansas football. 32 rushes, 224 yards, a touchdown, 6 catches, 110 yards receiving. I mean, have a day, Devin Neal. Have a day.
Kansas ball.
We got to call this segment like a helmet sticker or something. Like, I'm not sure what it is. We'll figure it out. Hey, any spot hashtag no free ads. Any sponsor want to sponsor our Players of the Week section? Hit me up. It'll only cost you $50,000.
No, I love it. What a great
Devin Neal. Yeah, I mean, dude, they like, I was there maybe 2 months ago and sat down with Lance Leipold and Jayden Daniels and I mean, even after the Jayden Daniels injury, to keep figuring out ways to win, and Devin Neal is playing at a high level. I mean, you don't see many backs with 220 plus yards rushing and 110 yards receiving in a game. So helmet sticker, Devin Neal. Who you got? Who's your next guy? I'm
going to go with a guy. I had to like double take when I saw the stat line. Tanner Mordecai.
Oh,
quarterback at SMU. I checked I think he had 7 touchdowns at the half or something. I mean, he finished with 10 total touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns passing. I mean, I don't know what they're doing in Houston. Yeah. I said before the season, I told you, I'm like, I think this Houston team could be good.
You did.
That was a hot take. But Tanner Mordecai, 10 touchdowns in one game. Well, I think they won 77 to 60 something.
Yeah.
But just unreal. Not a lot of defense in that one, but still a hell of a performance.
Got to be honest, I didn't watch that game, but yeah, 10 touchdowns, impressive. Haven't seen those kind of numbers since Baylor and West Virginia, the Geno Smith days. That's the last time we saw like 10 touchdowns together in Morgantown. My next guy, we talked about him, but got to give a helmet sticker to Jayden Daniels. Does it again. Legend in Death Valley. History is made. Superstar is born. Shout out Mason Taylor as well, freshman tight end. But bet the Jayden Daniels Heisman odds before it's too late. He may mess around and backdoor the Heisman. Like he may just backdoor that thing at the last minute. I think the odds like plus 1,700. They were plus 5,000 a couple weeks ago. But Jayden Daniels helmet sticker. This is like the Jayden Daniels podcast, but Jayden Daniels helmet sticker.
Hey, I'm all for it. Like we used to tell Jayden his freshman year, we said if you want all these accolades, a lot of the accolades go to the winners. At the end of the season, a lot of the All-Americans and all the first team, a lot of them go to the winning team. So you just keep winning, and absolutely, they continue to win. And the way he's playing, man, I absolutely believe that. But then, I got two guys real quick.
Okay.
First, I want to go quickly on a quarterback. I love my quarterbacks. MJ Morris at NC State's a freshman that went in there and outdueled Sam Hartman, who's a really good quarterback, and then a good Wake Forest team. And so to go in there and do that as a freshman, man, that was impressive. I think he had 240 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That was really impressive. And then back to our Arizona guys, Keely Ringo. I mean, as much as we've talked about the Tennessee offense and how good those receivers are and dynamic they are, for that defense to completely shut those guys down, and Keely is the leader of that. So impressive. And I mean, that dude is a beast. And that Georgia, I don't know if you heard the Kirby Smart, he was ripping into the defense. I think on like Wednesday or Thursday, they caught some practice footage. And but now you see, for good reason, he got those guys ready to play, and that secondary balled out.
Love it. Couple honorable mentions from me before we get to teams of the week. All right, Edward Sadie, running back at Temple, had a huge game. Called the Temple game a few weeks ago. Saw him play in person. Guy's a beast. Austin Reed, quarterback at Western Kentucky. He's been on my players of the week a couple times now. So got to give a couple guys little shout outs. And the Georgia defense, I think, just like overall the Georgia defense. I mean, shut down the top offense in the country. I don't think I anticipated them shutting down Tennessee's offense the way they did. So we'll give Georgia's defense a players of the week a helmet sticker. Yeah. Any last thought? Any honorable mention from you?
That's all I got. We do need to come up with something.
We can't give out too many. Give out too many.
No, players. I mean we're not getting participation trophies out here. I mean you got to really. But we do need something. We need a helmet sticker. Maybe we send the guy something. I mean
maybe we'll give him a chain from GLD, a little GLD chain.
There you go.
We'll see.
Shout out GLD.
Shout out GLD. We'll see if they want to sponsor that. Hashtag no free ads. Where are we at? Teams of the week. Oh, I was going to make a joke. I don't know if you've seen like my players of the week graphics I post every week.
Yep.
But there's like normally like 16 players on them, and people are like, dude, what are you just naming? Like you just listing like every player in college football that you have a connection with.
It started at like 5 and now it's at 17.
Well, what happens? Here's what happens when I do my players of the week and they end up being 15 guys long. What happens is I come up with my list as I'm watching the games. And sometimes I'm not watching them. I'm calling a different game. So I see the stat lines after, right? And then I'm like, okay, let me go watch some highlights. Let me watch some film. I start with like 6 guys. Well, then everyone knows I do it now, right? So I get texts, right? This guy needs to be on your players of the week. This guy. People start DMing me. I'm not even kidding. Coaches. Hey,
coaches.
Like I won't say like a coach in the Big Ten, DM me. Hey, this guy's been your players of the week. So at that point, I just throw them all on there. I got to start being more.
Shout out James.
Anyway, dude, it wasn't Penn State. It wasn't Penn State. Yeah, he was like, "Hey, you mind putting me on coaches of the week?"
Yeah. I'll retweet you.
No, dude.
Yeah.
All right, teams of the week.
Real quick, I got one guy. Sorry, I do want. Yep. I got one guy. Jalen Conyers. That shout out to your guy. We can't forget about Jalen. And it goes back to my point about scheme. Right. Jalen didn't develop these talents over the last week. Right. You recruited him out of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. The dude is ultra talented. They, made a switch at play caller, and he's been balling out, man. And so anyways, shout out to Jalen. Yeah. Tight end from Arizona State. For those who don't follow Pac-12 football, had 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. Had a good game last night. I think he had like 7 for 80 yards or something like that. And I will say, Trey, like I watched the whole Arizona State game. It was the last game on Saturday night. Jalen like looks so much better than he did like that first year he was with us at Arizona State. Like he looks like physical with the ball in his hands. Like he falls forward, he's breaking tackles, he's like lowering his shoulder.
He's running really well. We've known that he has elite ball skills. Like he's got some of the best ball skills I've ever been around.
Yeah.
But like to see him be physical is like a clear big step in his game, and he's been great. Like most impressively after the catch, which is never a category I thought he was going to be good in.
Yeah.
So they've done a good job with him at ASU.
Yeah. And I mean, you played at a high level. You played around a bunch of guys that have played at a high level. Like just having confidence, right? And belief in yourself is so important, man. And I think he's starting to develop that. And then the scheme certainly helps. Like he's not an inline point of the attack blocker, flex him out, let him be athletic and do his thing. So yeah. Credit to those guys. Jayden's balling.
All right, teams of the week. I'm going to start with Michigan State. Okay, Michigan State in the media for every possible wrong reason you could be in the media for the last few weeks. Had turmoil in East Lansing. Things were looking terrible. Players arrested, all that stuff. Adversity is no match for Mel Tucker. Goes into Champaign and stuns Illinois. Now, like I know that's kind of like an oxymoron, like big win against Illinois, but Illinois was top team in the West, or in the Big Ten West. So big win for Michigan State. Good job by Mel Tucker keeping his guys focused.
Yeah, and I want to shout out a team we played actually when I was at Pitt. We played at UConn and got smacked. It was like 10 degrees.
Oh,
but UConn and the job that Jim Mora is doing at UConn, those guys are 5-5. And where he's taken that when he started at UConn, I mean, that was a bad program. You watch those games. I remember I think it was a couple of years ago, we watched UMass, I think.
Yeah, dude, don't shit on UMass, please.
but we were just like, this is awful. I mean, like watching paint dry. And but so what he's established there and what they're I'm sure going to continue to build, super impressive to get to 5-5.
Yeah, I called their Ball State UConn game at Ball State, and UConn dominated that game, man, and then freaking lost it at the end. I'm like watching the game, I'm like, how did they lose? So like they'd be bowl eligible right now if they would have hung on. They dominated Ball State. I'm talking like I was like shocked, and somehow at they turned the ball over in the fourth quarter and lost the game. But yeah, Mora's done such a good job. It's amazing. And I'm a UMass guy. I love people at UMass. I mean, you know this. Like AD at UMass is I'm close with Ryan Bamford, but like, I mean, it's tough to watch, man. Like it's tough as a UMass guy to see where UConn is because like that's where UMass could be. It's just like Moore turned it around so fast, and he's done a great job with the portal. He's done a remarkable job, man. I mean, that UConn UMass game wasn't even close. UConn obviously wins. Liberty. Let's go to Liberty. I mean, literally everything Hugh Freeze touches turns to gold. I don't know if something about it's like having Jesus on your side at Liberty helps a lot too.
Faith, family, and football. Like
faith, family, football. But like,
I had $1 for.
I mean, you know me. I love a good redemption story. I mean, like Hugh Freeze, Ole Miss recruiting violations. He's calling escorts on his work phone. Disgraced coach. Everyone says we'll never coach again. It goes to Liberty and turns it into, I mean, close to a powerhouse. I mean, you just got a new deal making like $5 million a year at Liberty. Who thought that? I mean, who thought that? And Liberty's a good lesson on like alignment too, like alignment from an AD, from a president. Like that school wants to win at football, and all they care about is winning at football. So like they're spending tons of money on it, more than any other Group of Five school is. But what a win for Liberty! And now the question is like, can they hold on to Hugh Freeze? Can they hold on to Hugh Freeze in this next cycle? Because it looks like Auburn's going to go after him with everything they got from what the reports are saying.
Yeah, no doubt. Got an obvious one, but Notre Dame. I mean, to be able to, they lost the first 2 games of the year, and we thought they were going to go 0-12, right? I mean, the sky was falling in Notre Dame, and Freeman is just a bust, right? And they've turned it around. They played some good football, and to beat a good Clemson team at home the way they did too. I mean, just dominated that game. I think a lot of positive things going there, and that defense is playing really well. So good for them. Good for them for sticking together, and and see how they finish this thing out.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, to think about all the flack Freeman got, to start that season. Now they got a chance to finish 9-3. So good job by Marcus Freeman, and I do think he's the right hire there. I know there's a lot of question marks about it at the start, but I think those guys love him and want to play for him. And now he got the offense rolling. I think they're gonna have a chance to win 3 in a row here to end the season. No
doubt.
Florida State, Mike Norvell. Shout out Mike Norvell.
Played,
It felt like, what was that?
no, I played for Mike Norvell at Pitt. He's
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. And you can tell the culture, it was going to take time, man. That's another program that when Mike Norvell got to, because we played Florida State in the El Paso Bowl, the Frosted Flakes Bowl.
That's right. Yeah.
Shout out Frosted Flakes. Boy, that's
Yeah. Huge game. Just what a game. Yeah.
I think
What a game.
we won like 12-6 or something, but that was a bad Florida State team. And they had talent, but they were just, it was a wreck. And so you knew it was going to take time. But a guy like Mike Norvell to come in there, establish the culture, man, he, has crushed the transfer portal with guys like Johnny Wilson, Arizona State guy.
Yeah.
And so the job he's doing there, man, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, to just go and absolutely obliterate Miami the way he did. I mean, a huge win. Like you said, you can tell the culture shifting. You can feel it. He got a lot of flack this offseason too. I mean, a lot of people wrote him off, said that the Mike Norvell experiment's not going to work. He's done a great job. And Florida State, they got a chance to win 9 games. Yeah, 9 games this year. And obviously be a pretty good season.
Yeah, no doubt. It's so fun. I mean, every year there's just so many ebbs and flows throughout the season, right? Like Florida State wins the opener against LSU and they're riding high. And then I think they lose 2 or 3 in a row and they're struggling, right? Just the ebbs and flows of the season, man. And that's why I think you have to have just a good leader, man. A guy like a Mike Norvell. You see James Franklin, your guy. Those guys that just are even keel, man. Brian Kelly's one of them that just – ultra leaders. And, I think you have to have guys like that to ride that wave,
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Penn State? I know you, I talk about them a lot on this podcast. I'm sure you follow it a decent amount, being a guy who played at Pitt and obviously our friendship and beat Indiana this past weekend, dominated most of that game. I'm curious your thoughts on like the whole Sean Clifford drama with, everyone wants to see the freshman Drew Allar at quarterback. James Franklin sticking behind Sean Clifford. Obviously, like they should have, could have, would have beaten Ohio State. Got doors blown off against Michigan. How do you assess kind of James Franklin? Everyone talks about Franklin's record against top 5 teams, but again, the reality is you don't normally beat top 5 teams, but right. Everyone talks about how bad he's been against top 5 teams. How do you assess that whole situation?
Yeah, it's hard to, I know you're a big Sean Clifford guy and you know him well, and it's hard to hate on the results because he's won a lot of football games, he really has. But I do think that freshman quarterback, man, is really talented. And, especially with how the game is today, a lot of these games, man, you have to win because of your quarterback, not just try to protect them, and I think, Allar has the talent where he can go out and win games. I mean, every time he's played, and I know it's not, sometimes the game's out of hand and, and kind of the end of the game type stuff, but that dude's ultra talented. And I do think with that defense and the run game they have, and then you throw a guy like that in the mix and, obviously protect him in a way where, you're not just throwing it around the yard 40 times a game. But he got the talent to take that offense, I think, to the next level. And so obviously Franklin gets paid a lot more money than I do for a reason. He's got a hard decision to make and, he's riding with the older guy, which you can't blame him. Again, the guy's won a ton of football games at Penn State. But you can see the talent. I think you can see those two guys play and Allar has more, whatever you want to call it, arm talent is the buzzword. But he's special, man. I think he's going to be really, really good. And I don't know, but I don't blame Franklin for riding the older guy. Riding with him. He's won you a lot of games, and let's just see where it goes.
And as you know, man, like we don't see what happens in practice and how Drew's practicing every day. You see him play well when he's gotten his limited reps in game time, but obviously we don't see that. We don't see if how what his grasp of the offense is, and obviously he's a true freshman. So, there's a lot of drama around Penn State, but there's always drama in college football. So let's look forward. This week's games, another great slate. I mean, this week's slate may be better than last week's slate. There's like a more even distribution of great games all around the country. So let's dive into some of these thoughts on who we like, storylines, themes. Let's start in the Big Ten. Wisconsin against Iowa, 5-4 Wisconsin against 5-4 Iowa. My only thought is like, don't watch this game if you like points.
Well,
if you like offense, stay away. Just don't even watch it. First 1 to 10 points wins this game.
yeah, that's another like watching paint dry kind of game. Like just
Yeah,
grab a beer,
it
play
just
some.
screams Big Ten football.
Yeah, just grab a beer, play some cornhole, and just throw the game on over there, and just check it every once in a while. Because that might be a slow one. But no, as much as we've hyped up LSU and Jayden Daniels, and I believe in them, I do. But going into Arkansas this week, they just got embarrassed against Liberty, and we know how emotional these games are.
Yeah.
If there was ever an upset alert, this would be the game. LSU's coming off a high. Arkansas just got embarrassed. They're going to come out and give LSU their best shot. I think if LSU can go into Arkansas and find a way to win, doesn't have to be pretty, that shows a lot of maturity and the leadership of Brian Kelly to get that done, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's such an easy game to have a hangover, and like, a huge game, one of the biggest wins in the last decade for LSU, and to just have a hangover going into Arkansas. I mean, dude, remember like how good Arkansas was beginning of the year? I mean, KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders were like balling at such a high level. They were so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Obviously, have kind of fallen off, but and it had the tough loss last weekend. But yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to see it. All those games in the SEC got a chance to come down to the last possession and see if Jayden Daniels can get it done again. Back to the Big Ten, Illinois, Purdue, 7-2 Illinois coming off the loss against Purdue. This game, maybe like before last week, had a little bit of a bigger meaning, but now it's not as important. But again, another one that's not really pretty on paper, but it's kind of what you call two second-tier Big Ten teams now that Illinois lost last weekend. But like I'm looking at like can Illinois recover? Like, can they still hang on? You had the tough loss. Can you bounce back? Stay confident, win this game, and hang on to the Big Ten West title, because it's still very much alive, and it's funny to think that like this game, Illinois 7-2 and Purdue at 5-4, is going to has a chance to decide the Big Ten West. Just shows you how lopsided the Big Ten is, And then you got Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan just duking it out on the freaking Big Ten East.
That's why you've got to take the top two teams of the conference, right? I mean, I think Pac-12 is doing it this year. Like, just take the top two teams. The East and West thing. I mean, I was looking at the standings, and it's like just awful, with Iowa, Wisconsin. But no, that'll be interesting. I'm going to go unexpected here. I got UCF.
Tulane.
Your boy, John Reese Plumlee, one of my favorite guys I've ever recruited. Love John Reese at Tulane, and that's going to be, I think it's UCF 7-2, Tulane's 8-1. That's going to be a great game. I'm excited.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Plumlee's JRP's a little bit banged up. Mikey Keene played last week. Mikey Keene as well, the guy at UCF. So it'll be interesting to see who plays there. Who would have thought UCF Tulane would be a ranked matchup when you saw this schedule at the beginning of the season?
Right. Barn burner. Yeah.
Yeah. Who would have thought? That'll be a fun one.
He's going to be up for some jobs, right? My guy at Tulane.
Gus. Yep. What's his name? Willie Fritz.
Willie Fritzy. Yep.
Willie Fritz. Yeah,
he's going to be up for some jobs, man.
Yeah.
And again, it goes to show how important it is to be patient, man. Like he was on the brink of, they were ready to can him at Tulane. I mean, they've had a couple rough seasons. Yeah. But man, they've really turned it around, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I know his name's kind of been in the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, a game of two great coaches. I mean, talk about Gus Malzahn, just an absolute program builder. I mean, it's been fun. I did an interview with the athletic director at UCF, and it's been cool it was cool to talk to him. And I'm sure you followed it, Trey, like how innovative that UCF athletic department is. Like they do so many cool things. Like it's a true testament to like brands win championships, and like they've turned that program around. They're trying to be like the young hip football program. I was talking to the AD, and he was saying like, listen, like our fan base is Orlando. Like we don't have like they're a new school. They haven't been playing football forever. Like they don't have like the 55-year-old fan and donor who like has been a UCF fan forever. They're like, our fans are like the 30-year-old with like a 2-year-old that lives in Orlando and is like still kind of cool and hip.
Right.
So like they're trying to make it like a cool football program. They have the QR codes on the back of the jersey. They played the space game. I don't know if you saw that. They had like the space jerseys. They let the social media team like do what they want. Like I don't know if you saw like they for the space game, they literally completely changed the UCF football social media. It said like Space Commanders was like the @ name and stuff for the game. It was like hilarious. Like, yeah, but who else would do that? Like at most schools, you'd have to like get approval from like the board of trustees to do that.
Right.
You know, they're just like let them do whatever they want, and they're doing a great job. UCF, and you know they're going to win. They're going to the Big 12. I think they continue to win, and it's been pretty cool.
You know, it's interesting. You know, I'm kind of old school when it comes to a lot of that stuff. Like at the end of the day, man, you just got to win. Like I was laughing at Brian Kelly. Remember, he's doing like the nerdy, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And like at the time, everyone's like, this freaking clown, you know. And then they lose at Florida State, and they're like, this dude, you know, he's out there, my family, you know. But then
winning cures all,
winning
dude.
Cures it all, man. And like UCF, that's kind of how I feel. Like, you know, they can do the space stuff. They go out and get smacked. It looks pretty stupid. You know, I mean, you just got to win. And I know it's kind of an obvious thing, but no, it's interesting. But no, UCF, man. And, you know, to your point of the fan base, like it was the same way when I was at FIU. Like those smaller Florida schools, like FIU is a commuter school, man. There's no real fan base, you know, so it is hard to generate that. And I remember the first home game at FIU, I'm looking around the stadium, like I can hear like
what's going on.
I can hear grandma's conversation, you know, hey, you know, how you doing? But so it's interesting that UCF is taking that approach to kind of generate some buzz. And no, it's sweet.
We got Alabama, Ole Miss. Okay. I'm not sure, like 4 weeks ago, would you ever think this game had no playoff implications? Like, it just feels strange for a ranked SEC matchup, but it'll be fun. Lane Kiffin against Nick Saban. It'll be a cool one. How does Alabama respond is kind of what I'm looking for, and how well coached is this Nick Saban? I guess not how well coached, but how, you know, can Nick Saban's coaching job get them over the edge, like how you would expect it to happen?
And Lane Kiffin's, I mean, he's had success against Saban, right? Offensively. I mean, they've been able to put up some points. So, that's going to be an interesting one to see. Because Alabama's lost 2 in a row. I mean, there's no way they lose 3, right? There's no way. You would think, but it'd be interesting if Ole Miss can pull it off, and LSU doesn't go out to Arkansas and get it done. I mean, that whole dynamic can change quickly. So, I'm interested to see how that thing shakes out.
That's a good point. Yeah, the script could flip quickly there. Georgia against Mississippi State. It's a night game in Starkville. Another big game for the Dogs. Do the Dogs stumble? Do they stumble? No shot. They're not going to stumble. They're not going to stumble. Georgia's going to dominate that game. Washington, Oregon, going to be a fun one in the Pac-12. Expect a lot of points, I'd say. A lot of points are going to be on the board. Must-watch TV. 2 new coaches. It's going to be a good one. And these 2 teams hate each other, so that'll be fun. Any comments on that? I know you're a Pac-12
guy. No, I'm an Oregon believer. I believe in Bo Nix. I believe in Kenny Dillingham. Dan Lanning's got the defense playing well. I'm rolling Oregon.
TCU, Texas. I already told you earlier, I think Texas wins this game. Probably the game of the week, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. Texas, if they get a lead, can they score more than 3 points in the second half? They've been so bad in the second half the last 2 weeks. So they got to figure that out. How many carries is too many for Bijan Robinson? Like, give him the ball 50 times, maybe. I mean, just feed the guy. I don't think Max Duggan's looked great. I mean, he's played all right, but I don't think he's looked great. Can he have kind of a bounce back game after last week? Obviously, going to be a lot of points in this one as well. I think everyone expects that.
Yeah. I'll be the contrarian. I'll go TCU.
Okay. You think TCU's for real?
You know, I mean, on paper, you take Texas, right, with Quinn Ewers and Bijan, and I mean, they've got some really good players, but there's something to be said about just finding a way to win. And I think this TCU team's got some grit. Max, Duggan is extremely tough, and he can run. I mean, he's that leader. But and so I wouldn't be shocked if you see them. It's going to be a go down to the wire, last possession kind of game, and I'll go TCU.
Love it. I love it. North Carolina, Wake Forest. UNC's 8-1, Wake Forest 6-3. I mean, not enough people talking about 8-1 North Carolina. I mean, they're playing really good football. Yeah. Drake May, if he was eligible, may be the number one quarterback in the draft right now for this year's draft. He's obviously not eligible yet. What happened to Wake Forest? I mean, 8 turnovers against Louisville. UNC. Yeah. I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that one has been surprising, especially in a veteran quarterback in Sam Hartman. To see him have as many turnovers as he's had. When I'm taking bets or picks, if you will, I ride with the head coach and the quarterback. Those are my two things. And I love Mac Brown and Drake May is balling out. So I'll ride UNC.
Let's get to our gambling corner for the week. But before we go there, this episode is brought to you by Indochino. Indochino is my favorite place for clothing, suits, whatever you need. It's the place I go. Finding the perfect suit is impossible, guys. Literally, it's the hardest thing, especially as a big dude, finding stuff that fits you. But now it's simple thanks to Indochino. Find your favorite fabric, customize every detail, and find the look that's perfect for you. Submit your measurements online, get measured in store for a custom made-for-you fit at an incredible price. And that's the hard part. You guys know suits and men's pants are expensive, but Indochino has great deals. And with their fall collection featuring new colors and premium fabrics, you'll be in style all season long. I recently ordered some custom pants from Indochino, and they fit me perfectly. Again, that's the hard part for me is finding stuff that fits me as a bigger dude, like finding stuff that's still tight enough but not too loose, fits you around the waist. Indochino's the best place for that kind of stuff. You put in all your measurements, and it's easy. Okay, and then when it comes to suits, design a look that suits you perfectly. From the fabric to the cut, they have made-for-you suits starting at just $449 and premium fitted shirts starting at just $89. All right, shop their custom-fitted shirts, casual wear, outerwear, and more. They're always adding new designs, fabric options, and you got to check out their latest fall collection. I love Indochino. So, guys, make sure you design your perfect suit with Indochino. Get 10% off any purchase of $399 or more using my promo code Adam B. That's Adam B at Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com. Promo code Adam B. Check them out. All right, gambling corner. Trey, I was 2-1 last week. Good week for me. We had the UCLA ASU over at 66.5. Okay, but this thing hit in the third quarter. Not trying to brag too much. Cleared by 20 points. I mean, it's about time people start tailing my picks. All right, LSU, I had them at plus 13.5 against Bama. Again, not going to brag. Easiest pick of all time. And then I was wrong on this one. I was wrong on Tennessee. I had Tennessee against Georgia. Had Tennessee with the spread. I was wrong. I wanted someone else to take the throne of the SEC. It was an emotional pick, and I shouldn't have taken it. I was wrong. 2-1 last week, right? Not a bad week, right? Not a bad week.
Not at all. I would have taken the same thing if it makes you feel any better. We're both idiots.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it. All right, here's my picks this week, and you're either going to tell me if you're riding with me or if you're fading my pick. Okay. All right, we're going Notre Dame against Navy. I'm taking Navy plus 16.5. Okay, Notre Dame's coming off a huge win on the road. All right, huge win on the road, and now they're minus 16.5 against an option team.
You know what?
Option team. Navy's 5-2 as underdog.
I'm going to take that one. I like it. I like it because, and especially when you're playing a team like Navy, it's just a grind out. Like we played Navy at Pitt, and it felt like you had the ball every, 15 minutes. You had one possession a quarter, and it's just like, gosh, man, it just puts a lot of stress on your offense because you're not going to have a ton of possession, so you've got to execute when you have it. What is it, 16.5?
16. I mean, dude, that's a lot of points for an option game. I mean, they're going to get the ball 4 times the whole game.
I like it. I'll take the 16.5.
Okay, I love it. All right, we're riding together. All right, pick number 2. We're going to the SEC, Alabama against Ole Miss. You know where I'm going with this one, right? You know where I'm going. Ole Miss plus 12 points. What? Can someone tell me why Vegas is giving Bama so much credit? Like, why are we all in on the Bama train? 12 points for Ole Miss at home. I mean, Ole Miss getting 2 weeks to prepare for Nick Saban, coming off a bye. I mean, the big thing is, like, how does Bama respond, right? We talked about it. Nick Saban, you'd think they respond well. But, again, I think 12 points is too many. Bama on the road against ranked opponents this year, 0-3.
It's a great stat. I'm going to take Bama here. I'm going to take Bama. I think they'll be able to be stout against the run, and they're going to force Jackson Dart to throw the ball a lot, which Ole Miss does not want to do. So I think this could be a game. It's close at the half. Like I would take Ole Miss first half, whatever the plus number is there. But I think as the game continues and grinds on, I think Alabama starts to pull away late.
Okay, I like it. I mean, I don't love it, but I like that you're betting against me. You know, I like.
We need a graphic. We'll get a graphic next week.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be on here. It'll be on here. Pick number three. San Jose State against San Diego State. I mean, what a ball game. I'm gonna tune into this one. I got San Jose State -2.5. Okay, San Diego State's 1-4 this year against the spread. Okay, 1-4. San Jose State 2-1 on the road against the spread.
Okay.
All right. I mean, that should tell you something right there. Okay. San Jose State 4-1 over the last 5 games. San Jose State's top 3 defense in the Mountain West. San Diego State offense bottom 4 in the conference. 2.5 points for San Jose State -2.5. They're going to win by.
It's going to be a ruckus environment. You know they're going to.
Oh, place is going to be rocking. I mean that
you're not going to be able to hear the cadence. Yeah, I'll go San Jose. I'll go San Jose.
Talk about what makes college football great. San Jose State, San Diego State. Okay, I couldn't name one player on either team, but San Jose State -2.5. I'm
starting at 11 p.m. Eastern. Holy smokes! I remember being at the bar at Pitt, and I'd be watching like that, like Fresno State versus Hawaii, just like what is going on. That's for a different part.
Yeah. So are you favoring?
No, I'll take you. I'll go San Jose State. I'm betting on the fans. I'm betting on the good fans of San Jose State to bring it home.
I love it. All right. Well, there you have it. Our Week 10 recap, Week 11 preview, picks, players of the week, playoff implications. I mean, what a crazy, crazy time in college football. It keeps getting crazier. It's why it's the greatest sport in the world. It's why we talk about it so much. Trey Anderson, my guy, quarterback guru, former coach at Arizona State, great football mind. Any closing thoughts? What are you looking forward to most in Week 11 of college football?
I want to see some upsets. I think there's been a lot of shifting. The Alabama thing has surprised a lot of people. I want to see some more shifting. I think like you said, and I went TCU to be contrarian, but if they lose, Ohio State, Michigan, one of them's going to lose. I want to see it all get mixed up. And, I'd love to see Ole Miss pull it out. So I'm curious to see how many upsets we get this week.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's going to be a fun one. Like you mentioned, see how Texas does. I've been on that pick all week. See how my betting picks do. It's going to be a fun one, man. I'm excited to check it out. I'm not calling a game this weekend. I'm going to be at the Penn State game. Maryland at Penn State. We'll be there shooting some content. So we'll have a YouTube video coming after that game. Going to some tailgates again. Going to be a fun time. So, should be a good one. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Shout out to our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy, Pickett, Indochino, and Members First. Make sure to support all them and check them out. Appreciate it, Trey. Thanks for your time, brother. We'll see you next week.
See you.